My name is Matthijs Dierckx and I'm the composer for Unexplored 2. Today I'm gonna tell you a bit about how we created the adaptive bits of the soundtrack. Why adaptive music? First of all, you have to understand that Unexplored 2 is a completely generative game. It takes content generation way beyond what has been done before. It generates the entire world. Within those worlds it generates lands, and within those lands it generates levels, and within those levels there is all sorts of puzzles and buildings and enemies, and we just don't know exactly what the player is going to experience. So to make sure that the music will be fitting to what the player is experiencing, we needed the music to be adaptive. Adaptive music isn't new. It's been around for literal decades in the games industry. There are a couple of different approaches, and the most popular approach is that what I like to call the laying down the rails as you go along. Imagine you have all these pieces of music, and depending on the state of the game, the system chooses a piece of music and sets it in front of the piece of music that is playing now. And so if it's going really bad, it takes this piece. If it's going really great, it takes that piece, and all these pieces will fit together. That works perfectly for a couple of AAA games. It's production-wise, it's not really achievable most of the times for indie studios. And I have another issue with that approach, which is I do believe that music, even soundtracks, should have, some sort of horizontal progression. You start a song and you build up to something, and you have, different parts, and then you work towards an end. And you cannot achieve that when the selection of parts is sort of randomly. So for Unexplored 1, we came up with a different system. I'm not saying this is completely original, but we created our own system, which we built upon for Unexplored 2. So imagine it a bit of a layer cake. You have a foundation of dough. When you put strawberries and cream on top of that, it's going to be a sweet cake. But when you put meat or less harmful stuff on it, you create an entirely different kind of flavor, but you still retain the same foundation. That's the idea we were using for the soundtracks of Unexplored 1 and 2. So we created several layers of music, and not simple, these are the strings, and when it's getting exciting, we're adding percussion. No, we tried to approach it slightly more musically. So we created the music in Cubase Pro using all sorts of virtual instruments, a virtual orchestra, and sometimes a real instrument. And we put those files into Fmod, which is a very popular audio sort of bridge to Unity, and the game obviously was made in Unity. So this is what the layers look like in Fmod. In the middle you have the basic layer. It's sort of atmospheric but still neutral music, and it sounds a bit like this. So we have those 5 layers to play with, and based on those 5 musical layers, we defined 5 or 6 different kinds of scenarios. And those are, your basic scenario, which basically tells the system to only play the basic layer. But when it goes bad, or the player's getting himself or herself in a dangerous situation, we're gonna play the dangerous scenario, and that's going to add some of the other layers. And that's how we defined for each track separately those 6 scenarios. prevent a situation in which the layers were constantly switching from, like very dramatic to very cheerful, we decided to add a minimum duration for every single scenario, and also a maximum duration, because sometimes you just don't want this dramatic music to go on for 3 minutes, because then the effect starts to wear off and it gets kind of tedious. Yeah, we know we are in a dangerous situation, so bugger off. And the same goes for the fade in and the fade out between the different scenarios. It wasn't always 6 seconds. It could be as much as 12, and it could be as little as 2. So what went well? What are the positives of an approach like this? It's very flexible. It's very easy to come up with scenarios that fit almost everything that the game can generate. It suits generative gameplay very well. We succeeded in maintaining the horizontal progression within the music. And you got these many little happy accidents where people think that the music adapted to what they were doing. Well, sometimes it's just, a happy coincidence. But that's great. That's fine. That's actually a little bit of a plus.
Anybody at the boot?
So why wouldn't you do it? What are the downsides of something like the system we use? Well, first of all, it takes just a ridiculous amount of time to produce. You have to compose way more music. You have to tweak a lot of values when you've done producing and composing the music. So it's just a lot of time that goes into the production. And 5 layers, to be honest, it's very flexible, but it's also overly complicated. I would suggest using only 3 layers. And something else, which was very weird. At one point, I noticed that the game director and I were trying to sort of replace or replicate sound effects with the music, where when you would achieve something in the game, you would hear this cheerful music for a couple of seconds to, communicate, well done player. That is not something that you should do with music. That should be done with sound effects. Generative games are hard to test anyhow, but to test your adaptive music system within a generative game is ridiculously difficult.